What's up, guys?
Yo.
We are back.
Yes, sir.
Another episode here. We're going personal this week. And this is a question I get a lot. We're talking about like our story, our family, a blended family, post-divorce, second marriages.
Yikes.
Because a lot of people don't know that this is our second marriage.
Right.
Some do. And then some, like, I'll be talking on my Instagram stories and I'll say, like, the boys were with their parents this weekend. And I always get a message like, wait, what are you talking about? Like,
right.
What do you mean they're other parents? And it's like, oh, this is our second marriage.
You get that in the church as a pastor.
Yeah.
I love telling people that.
It's a fun game we play,
It is a fun game.
actually.
Because this is how it goes. They automatically assume that our family's been together forever. Mm-hmm. And we give that vibe.
Yeah.
But then they go, how long you been married? And then we say 7 years.
After they know that our boys are teenagers.
Right. And then they start calculating.
You see the wheels start turning.
Your boys are 17 and 15.
But you've been married for 7 years.
Right.
How does that work?
Yeah. And it was even more confusing when we first got married. Our boys, and their names are Chase and Hunter. Chase and Hunter looked like they were biological brothers.
Yeah, they were the same size, the similar vibe. Like, people thought they were like biological brothers.
Yeah.
And now, as they've gotten older, it's funny because Hunter towers over all of us.
Yes, he does.
Mike is 5'6".
He's the youngest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mike is 5'6". He'll say he's 5'7".
My license says 5'7". Thank you.
Everyone
very much.
lies on their license.
No, I'm telling the truth.
Chase is 5'7". I'm 5'3". I just always wear heels so people think I'm not that short. Hunter's almost at 6 foot.
Yeah, he's pretty much 6 foot.
So like when we take family pictures, he stands out. Yeah, it looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
Which Hunter's father is, I think he's maybe 5'9", 5'10".
Gets it from your dad.
Yeah, Hunter gets his height from my dad. So even if we were still together, like Hunter would still tower over both of us anyway. But yeah, so it's been funny to hear people like, I love that they think that we are the original nuclear family, because it shows how much we love each other and how well we've been able to blend our families. Mm-hmm. But can you share a little bit about that? Because a lot of people don't know our story and they're like, I want to know how you guys got together. Yeah. So,
well, I did the typical pastor Christian thing where you get married really young. And I just me, I'm not putting anybody else on blast, but for me personally, this is my experience. Don't at me. It's my experience. I felt the pressure. I was hired right out of college to be a pastor. And I just felt this pressure of like, people were like, yo, can't be the single pastor, traveling and doing this and doing that. Like, gotta get married, And so I was dating this girl and this is like, I cringe hearing this, but she was 19 and I was 21 and we got married because I was hired right out of college and
which is like stop for a second. Like, that's crazy. That would mean Chase would be getting married. Essentially in a year. Because he's going to be 18 in February.
Thanks. I'd punch him in his teeth.
But like, isn't that wild?
Yeah,
and like,
it is
for
wild.
me, thinking back of myself at 19 and 21, I know business. I got married. We'll get to mine, but like, I was a little bit older, but still, like, that's crazy to me.
So I got married, and then, a year or two later, we had Chase. And then ever since then, it's just been a turbulent marriage. I think because we were still young, I fought for the marriage for about 11 years. And she decided to leave. And then after she left, she came out of the closet. So it's a wrap. I couldn't salvage that at all. And so in that moment, I thought, this is also sad to say, but I thought my career was over. Mm-hmm. Because, people don't want to follow a divorce pastor. I'm over here like giving pastoral counseling, premarital counseling, all this other stuff. So I thought everything was over, but luckily people surrounded me and supported me and they said, no, this had nothing to do with you. It was beyond your control. You're still healthy. And so anyway, I did due diligence and made sure that I walked the path of healing, from that. And then stayed single for a few years, doing the pastor thing and everything like that. And I vowed to myself, I'm never going to date anybody in church because like, that's just a recipe for disaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then that's when you come in.
Yeah. And then I walked in. But for me personally, I got married when I was 25. and had Hunter at 26. So very quickly, like 2 weeks shy of my first wedding anniversary, Hunter was born. And mine was, I was dating his father. And then like things were like going along, and he was buying a house, and he was like, well, do you want to move in with me? And I'm like, sure. Like, I guess like we're spending time at each other's places anyway. And then it was like, okay, well, I guess we're getting engaged now. And then I guess we're getting married now. And then whoops, we have a kid now. And I didn't really understand what marriage was going into it. And we weren't as young as you were, but I don't think either one of us.
How young were you?
I was 25.
25,
and he was 2 years older than me.
Okay.
But I don't think either one of us really knew what marriage was. I don't think we were prepared for it. And I think we just followed the timeline of what we thought we were supposed to do.
Yes.
Rather than what like really should have been happening.
Right.
And
that's a parallel in our stories. We just
Yeah.
felt like that's what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Not that we were found the one.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I hate saying this, but if I hadn't had Hunter as quickly as I did, I don't think our marriage would have lasted. We were only married for 2 years, but I don't even think it would have lasted that long if I hadn't had Hunter, because we were just so ill-equipped. We didn't communicate. We weren't right for each other. We weren't. So we got divorced, and before meeting you, I was single. We met in 2015, and I got divorced in 2009. So I was single for like 6 years.
Yeah.
From the time we split, because obviously there's a little time between a split and a finalized
An official
divorce.
Right.
But yeah, I was single for like 6 years before we met. And I was very choosy about who I dated. You were actually the only guy that I ever introduced to Hunter.
Wow.
And I dated people.
I think that's wise.
Yeah, nothing serious. I dated people. I went on here and there, casual things, but like I never introduced Hunter to anyone but you, because my thing always was I don't want to run guys in and out of Hunter's life. Like if I introduce him to someone, it's serious. And I also said to his dad at the time, hey, I'm giving you the heads up, because it was something we had always talked about. Like, if I'm introducing Hunter to someone, I'm going to let you know first. And it's only going to be if it's something serious.
Yeah.
So, but it was funny because it was to the point that my family had all decided themselves, Jill's never going to get married again. Jill's very independent. She does her thing. Like, it's going to take a strong guy to come into the situation to make her like settle down again. And then Mike walked into the building. And that was the funny part, because I grew up Italian, Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic school in grade school. We're like funeral holiday Catholics. Like, we weren't your typical
Creasters.
Every Sunday
Yeah.
Catholics. But when I told my dad that I was dating a pastor, I'm pretty sure he laughed.
Yeah. I'm laughing now still.
Yeah, and my friends, they're like, what do you mean you're dating a pastor? I'm like, but it's like different, because they're all thinking the priest in the robe and da-da. And then you walk in and you're this like tattooed, earrings, like Puerto Rican, like normal guy. And
I don't know if people would say normal, but go ahead.
yeah, my sister and her husband were like, who is this
guy? They were
guy?
very suspicious.
But yeah, like people had a really hard time wrapping their head around it. And for me, like, yes, I was attending fervent for a short while before you and I ever talked one-on-one.
Yeah.
Not one-on-one. We talked at an event.
Yeah.
But I was attending for maybe a couple months prior to that. And it never like occurred to me that like that would even be a possibility. Because I just saw you as this guy's a pastor. But he's like a normal everyday guy at the same time. You know what I mean? So that was growing up Catholic. That was hard for me to wrap my head around as well.
Right.
So.
And then my mom and your friend Kate kind of conspired behind the scenes.
We think that they were secretly conspiring.
Yeah, and they kept us together. So we started texting, dated.
Well, do you want to share how we started texting?
Sure. You go ahead and tell it.
So we were in church service one Sunday, and Hunter was in the kids' room. And if you know me and know Hunter, until he was like 8, would randomly throw up all the time. Like, we would be out to dinner with my family, and like everyone's just waiting for Hunter to throw up because it's coming at some point.
Yeah.
So Hunter did what Hunter does, and he threw up in the kids' room, and they had to clear the whole kids' room out because there was puke everywhere.
Yeah.
And they had to pull me out of service. And at the time, Fervent was meeting in a movie theater. So I got up from my seat, had to walk all the way around front, below the screen, in front of everyone. Then I forgot my purse. So had to run back in.
Interrupted the service twice.
I made quite the impression. And then you can go from here.
Yeah. And so then I knew that you were new to the church. And so I contacted Kate, your friend, and I said, hey, let me text her and just let her know, hey, it happens to the best of us. You know, try to just diffuse any anxiety you had about leaving or whatever.
I was like so embarrassed.
And we started texting and talking and processing. And you started getting impatient because you were just like, when is this dude? Does this dude like me?
I wasn't getting impatient. I was confused because I said to Kate, I was like, do you think he likes me? Because like we're talking all the time. Like I don't talk to just anyone this much, but like he's a pastor, and everything was very platonic in our conversations. It wasn't flirty. It wasn't inappropriate or anything like that. So I'm like, maybe he just wants to be friends. Like, I don't know. Yeah. And then you finally did ask me out one night, and I was like, oh crap, he does like me.
Yep. So then we went on a date and then started dating. I interrogated the crap out of you. We
were interrogating the crap out of each other even during those platonic conversations. Right. We were sharing a lot about ourselves and our lives and stuff like that. Here's the part Mike's not going to tell you.
What do you mean I'm not going to tell you?
Our first date was on a Friday, Friday, May 22nd, which is actually my mom's birthday.
Yeah.
We went out 3 times that weekend. We went out.
Hold on, back to truck up.
No. Was that Memorial Day weekend? Or
yeah, it was Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
But like those, I wouldn't say
early for Memorial Day weekend. No?
I wouldn't say going out. We did things the whole weekend together.
We went out Friday night.
We went out Friday night to dinner, a nice dinner in Philly.
Yes.
And
then that Sunday we did something. We went somewhere. Yeah. I forget where. And then that Monday you brought me over your parents' house for a Memorial Day picnic.
Yeah, it's a wrap.
And I was like, so like, it was weird because I'm like, does everybody know like we're like dating?
A thing.
Like I didn't know how to act, but Mike's family's like super chill, like make you really comfortable to be around them. And I had known his mom from church already.
Right.
So I like kind of knew who was who in the zoo, but the night of our first date, you texted me afterwards and you were like, is this officially a thing? Like I'm not. He locked it down the first night, and I was like, I remember texting. I think I was texting Kate
because we were talking intensely before that. So
yeah,
what else
it felt like we
level?
Were dating even before we went out on a date.
Yeah.
Once you asked me out, because there was 3 weeks between when you asked me out and we actually went out because of kids. Back and forth and stuff like that. There was a lot going. Oh, my sister was getting married at that time too. I had my sister's wedding. Like so it took 3 weeks for us to go out. So it was almost like in that 3-week period we were already dating.
Yeah.
And that's when the conversation changed a little bit.
For those of you watching on YouTube, I have the worst memory ever. So I'm literally reliving my life as she's talking.
Looking at me like, that's why when I'm like, do you want to comment on that? And he's like,
no, because I don't remember.
He's the worst with dates. He'll be like, when did we start this? And he's like 3 years off. Right. I'm like, bro, stop. So yeah, he locked it down the first night, and something that many people don't know. So that happened in May. We got married August 1st.
Yes.
So I think not long after, I think it was in June that you were like, I want to marry you.
Right.
And it was, everyone thought we were crazy. You asked my dad for his permission, and his only thing was...
He just asked, are you a Cowboys fan? He wouldn't have given me your hand.
We actually have to have my dad on the podcast because we talk about him and his trolling so much. We should give him a chance.
Are you a Cowboys fan? And I said, no, I'm a Jets fan. He goes, nobody cares about the Jets. Yeah, you could marry my daughter.
I think he was just trying to like get me like married off at that point. But yeah, everyone thought we were crazy. A lot of people were not supportive at first.
Yeah.
They were not that they weren't supportive, they were very skeptical.
Yes. Skeptical.
And looking back, I totally get it.
For sure.
We met like we went on our first date May 22nd and we got married August 1st. Like, that's a little crazy.
Yeah, I would not recommend that.
But we knew.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk through that because, like, going into your second marriage, you have like a little bit, you have a different outlook on things. You know, it's not this, you're not playing games. Like, at all. No. You're like, this is who I am.
You shouldn't be playing games.
Yeah, most people. Obviously, there's exceptions.
And let's be honest, like, you know, in my head, I'm wondering, like, how many people are going to relate to this? 50% of people get divorced. Just call it what it is, right?
Yeah.
So half of y'all listening right now, like, you're going to relate, but I think the other half can still learn. So go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we didn't play games. It wasn't like... I can't imagine being on all the dating apps and stuff right now. No. I can't. And we like, that was just starting. I was on, what was it? It's not Twitter. It's Tinder. I was on Tinder for like a minute.
The worst.
I went out with one guy and then he like blocked me after our first date. And I'm like, we were talking after the first date. Like we were planning another date and then he blocked me all of a sudden. And then I found out that he like got back with his ex-wife. And instead of like saying something to me, he just blocked me. And I was like, I can't deal with stuff. This is so ridiculous. Yeah. But so we missed that boat.
No shade on anybody who's on dating apps.
No.
We just personally couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's a lot. I know people that are currently on dating apps and keeping up with the messaging and the this and the that. Like, it's a lot. And I just don't have the patience for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't, again, we weren't playing games. We were just like, this is who I am. And I think as you come into your 30s, you're more aware of who you are and you're more willing to talk about that. Your 20s, like, you're finding yourself. Like Jill in her 20s, even Jill in her 30s, I've changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
But we were really vocal about who we are, what we believed, like what we wanted, what we didn't want, like things that are non-negotiables for us. And I think that was really helpful because then we were able to decide, like, yeah, this is someone I actually want to spend my life with. And we were almost 35 at the time.
Yep.
We were like a couple months away from 35. And I think that's what made us get married quicker as well, because we were like, we want to be together and we don't want to like waste any time. So like, let's do this.
Yeah.
The scary side effect too was that there were kids involved and other parents that didn't know us, you know, and brutal honesty, there was a lot of friction there at times. But we've worked through it. It's taken some time, but I think we're on a good level right now.
Yeah.
With everyone involved, because I think, and even the people that were skeptical in the beginning, they've seen us throughout the years of our marriage and they're like, okay, they're a solid couple. Like they did know what they were talking about because like, I know my sister grilled you and was like, my sister can be impulsive sometimes. And like, was it impulsive? It may have been. But I was certain. And for me, that was something so serious, especially bringing my child into the equation.
Right.
So I think not playing games, being straight about who you are and trusting your gut.
Yeah.
You know, like for me, that's something I'm really big on. My gut tells me a lot.
I told you, like, I tried to scare you away from being a pastor's wife.
Yeah.
Because even that, you know, I just wish it would have been a regular marriage. You know, a regular marriage, you know, the wife goes to her job, the husband goes to his job, and those two things are kind of separated. Where because a pastor's wife, because of pre-existing culture, I don't think it's fair to pastors' wives, but they just feel this pressure to be something.
Yeah.
And everyone has a specific list of expectations on you. So I try my best to be like, yo, if you ain't about that life, you could leave right now.
Yeah.
You know? So I tried to scare you away.
Yeah. And in the beginning, though, I worked in the mortgage industry.
Right.
I had a full-time job in the mortgage industry, and I left.
But even with that job, people, unfortunately, in the church still have that expectation.
Yes.
I would come you don't play keyboard on the worship
why are
song?
You not leading the kids' ministry?
Right,
I'm like, I got my own kids. Not interested. So at first, we did live more separate lives because I worked full time. I woke up and went to work every day, and you would be home. You would handle the kids because you had more flexibility with where you had to be. But yeah, it did start. It was about a year after we got married that I really felt like I'm done with what I'm doing right now, and I really feel called to come work alongside of you. Which I think we should save working together as a married couple for another episode.
That'd be spicy. Yeah.
Yes.
We learned a lot.
But yeah, so that was an interesting take on it as well. From your point of view, like, what were the easy parts and what were like the harder parts about like stepping into a second marriage with a blended family? Like what your take on that? Because I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No,
because you don't remember the timeline.
Yeah, I'm trusting you being the biographer here. I think what I've learned is, especially with the mixed family dynamic, and I think this is a good rule in general in any relationship, to understand differentiation without disconnection. And what I mean by that is that I should never disconnect from the family, but to differentiate the fact that, like, okay, I need to be responsible. Let's say for Hunter, I need to be highly connected, but differentiate. There's certain things that, like, hey, I got to wait to see what your father says about that, right? And not take that personal, not feel like, oh, why am I not enough?
And that's hard.
And it's very hard, but that's what I'm talking about. Differentiation without the disconnection. Because some of you, when you hear differentiation, you're like, well, I got to just distance myself to protect my heart. And you just can't go in. You can't go into any family. I was going to say mixed family. You can't go into any family protecting your heart. Yeah. Because once you do that, then you're always on defense mode and you're not able to love people unconditionally. And so I need to learn differentiation. Okay, there are moments where I need to be a father figure, but I can't be his biological dad. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I had to learn that differentiation. And I even think even between us, growing and learning there's some issues that are just your issues. There's some issues that are just my issues. I need to care for you, support you, be connected to you. But there needs to be differentiation, because if not, you take everything so darn personal and you can't help that other person. Yeah. Right? So, but you don't swing the pendulum to the opposite extreme and just completely disconnect. Do you? I'll be over here when you're happy. Yeah. You get your crap together. Yeah. And you know what I mean? So I think differentiation without disconnection was a hard lesson to learn. But if you could figure that out, if you could learn that in any relationship, but especially in the paradigm of a mixed family, I think that's really, really important. Yeah. The other lesson I think I learned is that, and sorry, I speak this way. I'm a preacher, so
everything's an alliteration. I'm like sitting here thinking, I'm like, of course his answers are an alliteration.
No, but
I stumble, and you're like perfectly
prepared.
But
because of my bad memory, I need alliteration to remember this stuff. But I think correction without connection just brings condemnation. Right?
Can you hear the eye roll?
you can
see it on YouTube.
Yeah. But for real, correction without connection just brings condemnation. What I mean by that, when it comes to Hunter, all because I'm the authority in the house doesn't necessarily mean I could come in and slam him and correct him like automatically. Some people are like, yeah, you do have that power. You're right, I do structurally. However, if I'm just correcting him without having a connection with him, he's just going to walk around full of shame and guilt. And that's not healthy for anybody's development, right? So I need to make sure that if I'm going to make a withdrawal out of our relationship, I need to make sure that there are deposits. And everyone's heard this statement, but I think it's so true. Kids spell love Time. Yes. And so I had to learn to, like, we in the beginning, we did this pretty well, where we, like, you dated Chase. And, you know, so we said the last few podcasts, we talked about dating each other, but on top of dating each other, sometimes you take Chase one-on-one, I'll take Hunter one-on-one, we'll do something fun. And we'll connect. And I think that connection was important, because at times I do need to bring the correction. So I've helped and counseled other mixed families where the person's like completely withdrew from all areas of discipline. And I don't think that's healthy either. Yeah. Right? When the step parent doesn't, I'm not going to say anything to you. I'm your stepdad, not your friend.
When a step parent says, that's not my kid.
Yes.
I feel like that's the quickest way to ruin that connection, because yes, they understand you're not their biological parent, but there's still a tethering there. So when you say, that's not my kid, it's almost shaming them in a way, you know? It's like they're not worthy of, you know?
Right. And that goes back to that whole differentiation without disconnection, right? Like, we always say that they're our boys. Yes. Anytime we talk about them, our boys, our boys, our boys. Because there is a sense of ownership, but there's a there's an element that's not there, and it's just the biological side of it. But everything else, there's still your responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just committed to you, I'm committed to our family.
Yeah.
And so until that assignment is over, and then it's just you and I, which is coming soon. Sorry, boo. Until that commitment's over, I have to invest it in that kind of way. But I also have to know that, like, with Chase, like, I could sit there and say, well, I'm your dad, I get to just tell you whenever, however I want to. But I even challenge myself in that, all because there's a biological authority there, that principle still applies. Correction without connection just brings condemnation. I don't want him to feel like crap. I want him to get better. Right?
Yeah.
And so I had to learn that the hard way and feel like I'm in a good stride in that area.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I learned is proximity doesn't equal intimacy. And what I mean by that, and I especially learned that from us working together or us living together, we could be 3 feet away from each other all day. And I've had to learn that doesn't mean that we're connected emotionally.
Yeah.
Right? So especially as your kids get older, they're in the same house. They're sleeping, 10, 15 feet away from your door, right? Their proximity does not mean intimacy. And so we work together, and there'll be days where we're, again, inches apart sometimes, but still feel miles apart emotionally because we're working on different things. We're not emotionally connected, that kind of stuff. And in my head, like, there'd be times like you would come to me and you would go, I just feel like distant from you. In the back of my mind, I'm like, Heffa, we've been together all day. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, but I finally hit that realization. Oh, proximity does not mean intimacy. You could live under the same roof, be inches away, and still feel a mile apart emotionally. So still make time to emotionally invest into all the relationships within a mixed family, regular family, any relationship. I think it's important.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Just some things I wanted to add personally is you commented on me calling them our boys. And I will treat Chase the exact same way I treat Hunter. Obviously, they're different kids. They need different approaches.
Right.
And that was something in the beginning because Hunter's very literal. He needs a very direct approach. Chase took that as like, oh my God, she hates me. So I had to be softer with him in the beginning because we didn't know each other like that. Hunter was 8 years old. Like, we had 8 years together. Chase and I didn't have that. So that was like a learning curve for me. And something my approach was, because I know it may be tempting to come in and, like you said, try to be that biological parent. And for me, I was very aware of the fact, like, Chase has a mom. And I don't want to disrespect her at all. Like, that's his mother. She gave birth to him. I just want to be a positive female role model in his life.
Right.
So that was my approach with him at all times. How can I be a positive female role model in his life? How can I be there for him? And through the years, like, it's been really cool. Like, sometimes you'll get jealous because Chase will come to me about things that he doesn't come to you about. And you're like, well, he doesn't text me about that. And I'm like, because he and I have a bond now. We have a relationship. He knows what he can come to me for. And he knows what I'm like, where I'm the go-to. You know what I mean? And I think that's been a really beautiful thing. And as they've gotten older, like, those little one-on-one experiences, like, it doesn't have to be a big thing. Hey, I'm running to the store. Do you want to come with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's huge.
Right.
And a lot of times in the beginning, I would put a lot of pressure on myself to be like, oh, so how's your life? Da-da-da-da. Like, trying to, like, have all these questions to, like, badger them. But if you just drive in the car with them and sit,
100%,
they just start talking.
Yeah.
And they start talking about things that you're like, I didn't even know this was going on. And the hard thing is with that, and we're still figuring this out, is when we get home and I'm like, hey, so this one said, blah, 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 blah. Because the hard thing with that is in those moments, they're looking at you like this is like a private, like, safe moment, safe environment. They're confiding. And even though you're my husband, and if it was Chase, like, you're his biological father, like, I don't want you at a later time to, like, mention something about that to him, because then he feels like I've broken his trust.
Violated, yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's like another side of it as well. The hardest thing about a blended family, I would say, and I'm not perfect in this, but you can't talk badly about the other parents.
No.
it really, like, believe, if you're coming out of a rough relationship too, it's really hard. But like, at the end of the day, that's their parent. That person also gave life to them.
Right.
And no matter how you feel about them, it's going to put the child in the middle.
Yeah.
And so you can't. And I've had times where I've slipped because I was upset or I was short on patience.
That's good.
And like, even in those moments where if you do slip up, go back and apologize to them and just say, hey, you know, we all have hard moments. And like, I shouldn't have said that because, you know, that's your dad or that's your mom. And, you know, they deserve just as much respect as I do.
Yeah.
That is a really hard thing when it comes to blended families, but it's so crucial.
Right.
It's so crucial.
I would add, like, trust the truth. And what I mean by that is, like, your kids might be silly, but they're not stupid. And I feel like sometimes you feel as though you have to say something about the other parent because you don't want them to know that that's acceptable or to believe that that's acceptable. So I have to say something. But I've learned that, like, again, they're silly, but they're not stupid. Like, trust me, they've come to certain realizations that, oh, that's not right. This is right. You know, if you focus more on instilling values rather than bashing individuals, they'll get it.
They see the
trust
difference.
the truth.
Yep.
Trust the truth.
Yeah. And just regardless of what's going on with you and your ex, always be civil in front of your children. Always. It's not you. They don't need to know what's going on. They don't need to know if that person did something wrong. Again, that is their parent. Keep it civil.
Right.
And we haven't always been great at that.
Yeah.
But like, if there's anything, we're not trying to sit here in this episode and tell you that we're perfect and you need to do what we're doing. We're telling you the things that we're not perfect at in hopes that you can take that and do better than we did.
Yeah.
You know, because they're older and it's coming to that point where they're going to be gone. And you want them to have a good relationship with their other parent, and you want them to have a good relationship with you, and you want them to go forward in life with the values we've instilled and the behaviors we've modeled and be a great human.
Yep.
So that's something for me. Be a positive role model, female or male, for them. Don't try to replace that other parent. You know, don't bash that other parent. Keep it civil. You know, those are all things that I learned throughout the years that I haven't always been great at.
No, but we've gotten tremendously better.
Yeah.
So as you taking away our credit,
20/20 hindsight.
I want to give us the credit. Yeah. So.
But I hope you guys have found this helpful today.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep it too long because we could go on for a while.
Right.
But it's funny. I posted in my Instagram story today, you know, podcast topics, and someone specifically asked for this topic, and I was like, it's so funny.
Perfect.
We already had that planned.
Yeah.
But when we do, follow us on social because we will put those boxes sometimes, and we want to hear what you guys want to hear us talk about.
Or even if you have questions about previous episodes or this episode.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do like a Q&A episode one time.
Maybe. That'd be cool.
We got to get a little bit deeper into it.
Right. Got to get more episodes in the pipeline.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm eager.
Awesome. Well,
You
thanks,
wanna wrap us
guys.
up?
Yep.
There
Thanks,
you go.
guys. Make sure you like, review, share this, subscribe, all that stuff. You're intelligent people. You've been around the block. You know what to do. And be back here, right here, next week, next Wednesday on Too Real.
Bye.
Peace.